So, Jim, welcome to this debriefing session and congratulations on scoring a 770. It must feel good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I can still, picturing the moment I saw the score popped up on the screen. Yeah, I was really excited.
Okay, so let's talk about your GMAT journey. When did you start thinking about the GMAT and how did you start preparing for it?
So I started around end of June, I would say, and so by the time I made my first attempt, that was end of September. So it's about 3 months from the start to the end. And then, as you know, I took my second attempt at the beginning of October. That's when I scored a 770. So it was my first attempt. It's 700, and it's not a like bad score, right, by any ways, but and compared to my target score, like 730, 720, I just felt a little bit disappointed at that time. So that's why, I kind of had a call with I think Shaarang, and he helps me a lot. Within 3 weeks, I feel like magic. That magic wand.
Yeah, I mean,
So
the V34 to V42 is a pretty incredible improvement. And I would love to know more about that. But let's kind of go back. So, I mean, you started preparing towards the end of June. I was looking at the date when you purchased the E-GMAT course, which was around early August. I think 3rd of August is when you purchased the E-GMAT course.
correct.
So, what did you do between, end of June and beginning of August? So, you're talking about a month over here or so. And what did you study there, and then what made you decide that you needed to purchase a course?
So yeah, so a little bit background. So for me, I when I first started, my goal is I want to be as efficient as possible. You can go to online, check out all those in forum to figure out what's the strategy, but I feel like it's better to attend an in-person class, pick up all the basics. So I signed up for a 9-week class for another a program. So by the end of that 9 weeks, so that's around the beginning of August, and I took like a second or third mock exam. Surprisingly, my verbal score didn't even improve at all compared to my mock exam, like before my class. So it's
What
like
did you mock test score before the class?
was so end of June, before I even took any classes, I took the exam. I got 33.
Okay.
That's my mock exam, and then 9 weeks later, I took another exam. I got 34. So I was like, that's the moment I realized, okay, this is not working for me. I got to figure out something else. So that's where I try to search online to find a really good verbal course for my situation. That's why I signed up for E-GMAT, and then never looking back.
So what was the difference? So beginning of August till you took the exam. The first test you said you took in September.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the difference in learning? So you learned for about a month and a half using the E-GMAT platform. You'd learned for a month using presumably books and online classes before that. So what was the difference in learning in the verbal part of things?
I feel like the main difference is the approach E-GMAT stressed in, for example, sentence correction, the meaning-based approach. This is really like a game changer, because for me, before that, I was learning all the stuff. For example, like the basic, for sure. You need to understand the grammar. You need to know what are the things. But at the end of the day, they don't really stress the meaning, because when you get to 700 level, the grammar is not going to be the deciding factor, because what happened is you're always going to have 2 options left or 3 options left for you. All of them looks right. There's no grammar issues. The bunch of maybe the modifier have a different positions. So that's where it comes to meaning, right? And also, you're not going to have a lot of time. You only have 1.5 minutes to solve one question. So you don't have a lot of time to think about, okay, what are the strategy here? So that's the differences here. And not to mention for CR and RC question, the pre-thinking. is totally game changer because no one ever told me about pre-thinking until E-GMAT. Because without that, again, it's no way you're going to solve the 700 level questions efficiently within 2 minutes. There's just no way. So
Okay.
that's what felt like it's what makes the differences.
Okay. So you went through the courses, and I saw how you went through the courses. You did these quite well. And I was actually taking we have this backend system through which we get your stats out, and your application scores were pretty decent. Your concept scores were really good. So in application scores, you were at about 74 as an average, and you had only 5 files where you were lowered out of 100, where your application scores were lower than 70, which is kind of, we look at the metrics, we look at, okay,
Right.
how someone's doing the course. And so during this time, you did reach out, you did solve questions, a few questions in Scholaranium. So when you practiced before joining the E-GMAT course, did you practice from another resource, or did you take any other like small tests or something?
Yeah, I mostly practice using the OG, the guidance, the official guides, and then and that's actually pretty much it. I did a few mock exam from the other programs, and I didn't spend a lot of time, doing questions. I mostly concentrate on, those basic, principles and grammar, those things, and so but again, right, I realized, because I'm hoping, once I figure out all those grammar things, my work will going to increase a lot, but that's just not happening. So
Okay. But then when you practice from Scholaranium, how is practicing from this platform different from, let's say, doing the official guide or taking a mock test?
yeah, so the best part for, the questions in GMAT is a combination, right? It will have the official questions, and at the same time we'll have its own questions. So, all I need to do is just follow those steps, figure out, get all the courses finished, and do the questions step by step. And I don't have to, go out to, okay, should I maybe do this today or do that today, pick and choose, and everything is in outlining for me, so it's just really straightforward. And because, we do have a full-time jobs, it's impossible for me to spend like a lot of time every day. 2 hours a day, that's pretty much maximum for me. A few hours during the weekend, so the 20 hours maximum during the week, that's all I can have. So I want to find something as efficient as possible, right?
So what you're really saying is you didn't have to worry about what to do. You had to just say, hey, this is laid out for me. You could just tick, 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 and you could do this, and everything was there.
Exactly. And the best part is there's a way you can, everything is quantitative, right? You can see the result. What are your baseline score? For example, the planning tool that you have is really powerful because I input my baseline, and this is, the score that I'm targeting, how many days I need, how many hours I need, everything's there. I can even schedule my GMAT exam date based on that. So just making it so much easier for me to do, and that's where I like.
I will tell you this. Yes, our goal is to do that, and then that planning tool that you're talking about, it took us a few thousand hours to build because there's a lot of data that went on behind it.
Yeah.
But it, even after we provide the plan, you still need a diligent student such as yourself to execute that plan and make sure that you keep it in your head. So thank you for
Right.
that. So that's really, really good. So you also were in touch with a couple of people in our GMAT strategy team. So you talked, I think, with Ashutosh, with Karan, both of them. So,
Yeah.
tell me, how was that experience?
I think this is, I think, one of the things that really strikes me because it's different compared to, again, the other program that I was enrolled in. Because E-GMAT, at first I thought, okay, this is online course. I finished the course, that's it. But I didn't realize that the power of, like the responses I can get from you guys. All those questions I have, for example, the first question I ask is, I finished the sentence correction section. How do I maintain my ability while keep with those, question. So I got a really detailed step-by-step responses from you guys. What all these cement methodologies, and you have to practice the hard and medium question with a certain percentage ability score, and that makes me realize, wow, if I can just follow steps, nothing I need to worry about. And that's the best part. And there's a few other questions I ask as well. For example, one thing I asked right after my first attempt, I'm really frustrated because I didn't really get the target score I want. And Sharon gave me a video session. I was not expected that it impacting that as at all. And he speak from his own experience and lay out me a plan going forward. So that's really helpful. And I think the week before my exam, Karan and gave me some of the do and do not list, on the exam day, and that's really helpful as well. So all of those are an extra. I didn't really, expect it when I first signed up, but later on I realized, wow, that is so much value I can get from an online course. So really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm really, really glad. I mean, we put in a lot of effort training these people. Each
Yeah.
one of them goes through about 4 weeks of full-time training before they
Wow.
start responding to customer emails. There's a lot of background information they really do. There are like 6 stages of training that they go through before we consider them to be ready.
Got you. The best part is maybe from my experience, and Sharon, the one-on-one with Sharon, because he had the same experience I did. He took the GMAT a few times, and the verbal is the part that he was struggling with, and he start, I think, from a 30 something all the way to 40, 41 plus. I was like, that's the same thing. If he can do that, I can do that as well. Just need to follow the steps. So that really gave me a confidence and hope.
Yeah, Shaarang went from 690 to 740. He wants to get to a 760. So
Right.
and I think on the quant side is where he didn't do as well as what you did. On the verbal side, I think he has a
Right.
V40 or a V41.
Yeah.
Actually, he did that in about 12 days.
Right. So that, like, for example, like, to be honest, when I got 700 in my first attempt, it's a really, really low point. I was like, okay, all my dreams and hopes, I'm not even sure if I have to pursue this path anymore, because without a high score, it's going to be really, really tough, right? I have to rethink all my strategy, all my planning. And it's the 3 weeks are really, really a struggle. At the same time, I have to go to work, pretend nothing happened because I don't want so it's a really, I'm glad it's a happy ending. Yeah.
So tell me, you got on this call with Shaarang, and so one thing was, you said, there was that belief that he did it, so I can do it too, right? So that kind of pushed you to work harder towards a 60 score. But then what else was there that told you, okay, that gave you that clarity on how to get a 760?
It's I think it's the way that it reaffirmed me that I really need to stick to the methodology. And one thing I want to share with you is why I didn't score as high as I want in my first attempt. Because by the time I took my first GMAT, I have already went through all the the online E-GMAT courses, right? I did most of the after course this. So I think one thing I realized is leaning towards the week before my exam, you can probably tell that from my history that I didn't do any E-GMAT courses anymore.
Oh.
I stopped. Before that, I took a few GMAT official mock exam. I got, range from 730 to 760. That was before that. That was by the time I was concentrating on GMAT courses. I got 760. I was like, okay, pretty good. I'm confident. And then the last week, I stopped. I deviated from that.
Did not do Scholaranium at all.
Exactly. I started, all I did, I focused on quantity. Okay, I bought an additional GMAT official question package. I just started jam pack, like 50 questions every day. By the end of the week, I finished all the 600, 700 questions. And I was like, okay, That's the secret sauce. The more question you do,
Yep.
the better score I can get. And there later on realized this is a completely wrong strategy, because I didn't really focus on, for example, the pre-thinking. All I focus is, okay, I read the question, I get the answer right. Okay, on to the next one. That's I realized everything just completely kind of went downwards. And not surprisingly, I got 34. The same score, only 1 point higher than where I started. So after that, 3 weeks, I didn't really do a lot of question though. I spent like, I did maybe two or 20 or 30 questions every day and maximum, and with the times on, and spend a lot more time analyze the question after that. So, a complete change in the methodology. It's not because I don't know what I need to be done. It's just like I have to assure myself this is the way to go. Don't deviate from that. Especially in my cases, I feel like if I don't do pre-thinking, my CR for the over 700 level question, I will have really low successful rate. Because I can tell from the ESR score report, I got 33% question correct on CR question.
This was the 700 attempt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that is just unheard of, because all my practice, I got 80%. Like how did it happen? And then I realized it's because there's no pre-thinking. If I jump right into the options, 100%, I'm gonna be trapped by this, like trap options. And what happened is during the exam, the first attempt, I didn't feel anything differently. That's the dangerous part, because I didn't know that, okay, this is gonna be hard. This question is easy. I didn't feel that at all. I felt pretty good. Even during the break, during the 8 minutes break, because I did my verbal first and then I did quant. I was like, okay, I got this. It's gonna be great. That's the dangerous part. You didn't even know that you got it wrong. So
how was the second attempt different than when you were taking the exam? How did it feel?
So to be honest, it still feels hard, because I can tell from one thing I can tell is from the RC passage, it's getting harder. I got those 50 lines, like super technical pass. I know, okay, at least this time I start to get hard questions. I know my score is not going to be too low. But to be honest, it's really hard to tell, if I got it right or wrong. It's because the question get harder. But what I know is if I stick to that plan, I focus on pre-thinking, I won't be trapped, Even though all the question doesn't really, I'm not 100% sure this is the right question, but I know I won't pick the wrong answers anymore, So that's the part I'm confident.
You are, it's just, it's very interesting how when you say those things, it's just when you, it just echoes with my own experience. And just to really set context, I probably have created more critical reasoning questions than most experts in the industry. So but even today, and frankly, I've not created a question in the last 6 months, because when we were making mocks is when I created about 200 odd questions. And then a few other experts created a 200 or 300 critical reasoning questions, and I reviewed all of them. But even when I don't do pre-thinking, and I've been doing this for 7 years now, same trap for me. I mean, I would make it too.
Right?
Yeah, it's just you have to follow the process. You cannot forego the process.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. It's just, even sometimes even if the pre-thinking is not the exactly answer that you're going to be seeing in the options, it still works.
Oh, it works.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just guessing. It's probably concentrate myself. Okay, I got to figure out why. Like, for example, if the question is about, what if the plan, can you argue if the plan going to be successful or not? I'm going to focus on the plan. I'm not going to be focused on other out of scope factors. If you don't do that, the moment you saw those trap questions, you're going to start wondering, okay, what if about this? What if that happened? You're going to be deviated from your main purpose. Focus on plan. Don't focus on what happened for the other group or what happened last year. I think that's probably
So what really happens when you do pre-thinking, regardless of whether what you think about is there in the answer choices or not, is you are distilling that logic of the argument, okay, in your brain. And once you understand the logic, so you know what makes something successful, okay.
Yeah.
And so once you know what makes the conclusion happen, if it's a strength or if it's an assumption question, then
Yeah.
you also figure out when you see another way to make that conclusion happen. You say,
Mhm.
okay, this also, because I understand the logic of the argument, you can put that other option in the context of the logic of the argument, because the logic of the argument is already there in your mind when you did your pre-thinking.
I see.
And that's why you're able to get that answer right. It's like really saying, if you want to increase revenue, you know,
Yeah.
you can increase sales, keeping the or increase profitability, you can increase sales, keeping the costs down, or you can really say, I'm going to keep the revenue the same but reduce the costs. But as long as you've done one of those pre-thinking in your mind, if you get the other option, doing the math is easier. And
Right.
that's kind of what happens with pre-thinking.
Right.
And same thing happens with me. I mean, a lot of people really say, hey, you can't pre-think. No, you can. You may not be able to pre-think what's out there, but if you can pre-think one, and once you see what's
Yeah.
out there, you'd be able to apply the same logic, because the same logic is going to apply. It's transferable.
Yeah, I truly believe that it's a really powerful tool. It's really helpful. It's the harder the question get, the more powerful it be. Because for easier question, the like a 600 level below question, it's fine, right? You're gonna look at the answer question, okay, fine. But then getting harder, if you want to score like 730 above, then for sure, it has to be like that.
And there's one thing that I will tell you. Yes, we're talking just about CR questions right now, but this says habit of pre-thinking
Yeah.
is really great in building a business too. I mean, for example, when you have to think about growth, you have to really define the factors that need to lead to growth. You have to build that logic.
Right. Right.
And that's the same thing that we go through. And then you really say, okay, this is a logic this is a path that I want to go through. But whatever you do doesn't pan out always. But if you if you really ignite a spark somewhere, something else might pan out. If you have that logic built out well, you can say, okay, this is an alternate path that I can really take to lead to growth as well. So
Yeah.
in real business, it helps out a lot too. So it's
Fully
a
agree, because sometimes I can tell. Just an example, analogy. All those wrong questions. It's like there's a 5 people in the room. They're talking about their suggestion. There's always like a few guys. They just talking about something completely out of scope. Those are the wrong questions.
yes.
So for us, we need to stick to the plan, pre-thinking first to get get the right strategy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that happens in meetings. We've done the pre-thinking for the meeting beforehand. The meeting,
Yeah.
direct the meeting to be a lot more productive.
Yeah. I think CR is definitely the most improved area personally, but at the same time I think sentence correction I didn't realize that until I took the first real GMAT exam. Before that I thought, okay, if I just can get all the grammar rules solid 100%, I can pretty much solve everything, maybe even one or two, I'm not sure, but the actual exam is not like that. I think after the first 10 question, because I look at my ASR score, I got my first 10 question right except for one. So the difficulty level raised to like 700 level. I start to not sure. I have to guess a lot of, even though I final percentage is about 65% right, but I know I definitely missed a lot of harder one. And that's when I realized meaning. If I can't decide what to choose, read that, figure out what's the meaning compared to the original sentence. That's the only way. That's the only way to go. There's no other way.
It's the same thing. Yes, you're right. So I think that I'm really happy that that you did that realization, and I think that that realization by itself played a huge role in you improving to that verbal score of 42. So Jim, by any chance, did you get the ESR for the second attempt?
No, I didn't. I probably should look at the differences between the first and
Yeah,
second.
I think if you can get that both the attempts, and I'd love to get those ESRs. So if you can just send those over to me, that would be great.
Sure.
Okay, so what's next for you? Which schools are you applying to?
So originally, I was thinking about because I'm trying to get into investment banking. I was thinking about New York University, Stern.
Stern, yeah.
Um, but after
Columbia,
I scored 770,
Columbia.
I started wondering maybe I should give a shot to this Wharton as well.
Yeah, Wharton, yes.
So that's one because I know exactly what I'm trying to do after MBA, and there's a few options there, right? Wharton, Stern, maybe Booth and Columbia. Those are the good one.
What about
But
GSP Chicago?
yeah, Chicago. But for me personally, I would rather stay in New York City,
Okay.
unless it's the top one or two, right? Wharton, I can probably give it a try. So that's why I narrowed down my option to Wharton and Stern.
Here's something that I will tell you about that top one or two.
Yeah.
4 years ago, GSP Chicago was ranked #1 worldwide.
Oh, really?
GSP
I didn't know
Chicago
that.
has got more Nobel laureates. I mean, they employ more Nobel laureates than anyone else in the
Yeah.
world. So I mean, these rankings,
Good to know. It,
yes.
the, yeah, the ranking. Okay, I see. But yeah, there's a lot of
Ranked
people
higher
recommend.
than Harvard and Stanford is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So
So what I think Booth, Chicago Booth, right? That's
yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of friends and people recommend it to me as well. I think that's gonna be an option for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think those are, I mean, all great schools. I would say with the score that you have, I think you're very, very, very eligible for these schools. I mean, your median scores higher than, I mean, 30 points higher than the median scores at these schools.
Yeah, there's a other question I want to ask you though. So I want to see your opinion. Um, I know Wharton is a lot more competitive, and Stern is. If I apply Stern, do you think the chance of a scholarship will be possible? Um,
So, good. So are you, what's your visa situation?
so I was born in China, but I'm gonna apply as a Canadian
You're a Canadian
citizen.
citizen?
Yeah.
Good.
Um,
Yeah, then it becomes slightly higher, yes.
Slightly higher. Because I know it's gonna be super competitive as and you know that for sure because I heard for as an Indian male IT professional is gonna be even harder, right? So it's probably gonna be the same.
So here is, I mean, the way I would look at it is this way.
Yeah.
So and that's another reason why I suggest GSP Chicago. It's a bigger class,
Yeah.
and you are in the top 1 percentile of students. So
Mm-hmm.
bigger class when you have to fill in about 750 people.
Ah,
Okay,
that's
yeah, and they
wow.
have more scholarship money.
I see. I see. 750. Okay, that's almost double the size
Yeah,
compared.
that's what I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
GSP Chicago. My SEO team would know that. So 591 actually is this thing.
That's still large. Yeah.
That's a fairly large class, and I'm just looking at our stats over here. And it's got a very good starting salary, actually, frankly. Uh,
The median.
just now, we also do this research over here. Let me share this with you. So it says, what is a good score for GSP Chicago, for Chicago Booth School of Business? And what we really talk about is, it says starts with the acceptance rate and the yield rate over here. And you can see the median score.
Mm.
So it's been towards this. And this data we get from GMAT Club, where we really say, hey, out of 452, 109 were admitted, 76 were denied, 204 were invited to interview. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can really see the scores and the admitted ones over here. You can see really, really high acceptances, 27 applicants, 21 invited to interview, 15 admitted.
Oh,
That's, you can really see that. And when you get to that
wow.
20, I mean, it's about 50% from 730 onwards, but I am very certain that Some of these people who get to that 770 are people who take the GMAT like 10 times. But essentially, but essentially what you really see is once you get to 720 or below, the acceptance rate drops drastically.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Very clear drop.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So if you are among the top 2,000 people who in the world today, and essentially top 2,000 people in the world, they go to Harvard, Stanford, top 10 schools. So my guess is in the entire out of 591, there are about 100 students who are at the most who are at a score of 750 or higher. So my guess is that you'd get some form of scholarship, at least some form of scholarship.
How do they? How is the GMAT? I'm
GMAT
just
is
guessing.
probably 30 to 40% of your scholarship factor.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I see.
if that's what you're asking.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm asking. Okay. I see.
So you can Google it for what is a good score for any school, and we have these stats compiled for every school. So if I think it is for every school. So let's say.
Yeah, I think I did read an article a few weeks ago about the same.
Yeah. So we for every school you can really get the good scores over here. Columbia, same thing.
Wow, that's really helpful. Yeah, I read one about Stern a few weeks ago. What's the good score for Stern? That's what
Yes. Just Google what's a good score for XYZ, and again you'd really see that.
That's great. That's great.
So what happens is when it comes to 730 versus 770, your admission has about, probably adds a 20% factor to that once you go beyond the median score. But when it comes to scholarships, it adds a much, much bigger factor.
I see. That's
Okay.
good to know. That's good to know. So this is a really good news for me personally, right? If I would want to apply for a scholarship.
So I would also really say so I've had a couple of students who 770 scores, applied to Ross, applied to Wharton, applied to Keenan Flagler as well. I know you know, and that I should stop